I'm 13 years old. I'm in my bedroom. Now, I've been wrestling with a lot of issues. I wrestled with not being as popular as other kids, not as built as the other kids. You see, I'm the skinny little guy, and it seems as if the result of that is I end up acting it out in so many different ways. Now, what I'm really wrestling with are the emotions, the loneliness, the things I think I want and I don't have. Basically, all of it just seeming to melt together in some kind of a desperate rage. So here I am in the bedroom with all of these feelings, alone, and I think I'll just kill myself. I mean, I've always been a dreamer. That's what everybody says. So I can think of lots of ways I could do it. But for the most part, I'm just too scared to do it. And this makes me even angrier. So after an argument at home one night, I don't even really remember, I stormed off to my room. I'm so angry, so upset that I want this day to be my last. So I decided to wrap my head in a plastic bag and tape it up, just so I can suffocate myself to death. So I find a bag, I pull it over my head, and I wrap this tape around and around my head. And after a few minutes there, I'm holding my breath, I begin to feel fear overwhelming me. I can't breathe. I'm gasping for air. The bag is sucking into my mouth, and I just rip the plastic bag and the tape off my head. I realize I can't bring myself to do it. I've got to figure out another way to live life. 3 years earlier, I'm 10. I started smoking cigarettes. I started doing it because it was different, and some of the cooler kids were smoking. So what started as an innocent test of something that wasn't allowed became an addiction, really hard for me to break. I smoked for years. I was hiding it and covering it to the best of my ability from my parents. Of course, they knew. But smoking, it eventually led to drinking. And drinking turned into doing drugs, and all this was available easily in my own neighborhood at school. So fast forward to 18 years old now, still wrestling with my own identity, not really knowing who I was, and I ran. I ran away by joining the United States Army right after high school. As I got into my first duty station, the alcohol and drugs I thought I left back in Ohio soon found me in California. Many soldiers in my unit were deep into drugs and into alcohol, and it seemed that even though I left the area where I lived and thought was causing all the issues in my life, the issues were still there, just in a different package. So now I find myself as an adult. I got engaged before I left to join the Army, and then I ended up all the way across the United States. I'm on my own, I'm lonely again, and still not really knowing my identity or purpose, fighting just to fit in. I don't really understand what hope is at all. I've always liked to give, but in reality, I've become pretty selfish. A selfish guy, so I dove deeper into a life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? But that sucked. That's not how it works. Just a few months after arriving at my first duty station, I remember a night when I was at one of my lowest points. Several of my friends, they were overdosing on drugs and alcohol. I got to a point where I couldn't get any higher or drunk. I felt hopeless. I was watching the destruction that was happening in our own lives like it was some kind of bad TV show. The only thing is, I'm the main character. I felt like something should change, but I had no idea what it could possibly be. What could I do? I didn't know. I remember another night specifically. It was a Friday night. I remember it well. We'd been planning it for a couple of days, and I was in the home of one of my friends who introduced me to crack and cocaine. And we were just flat broke. Like I said, it's a night I'll never forget for the rest of my life. You see, there were 3 of us there. Well, 3 and a half. It was me, my friend, and his pregnant wife. We ended up running out of crack faster than we thought we would, and we wanted more for sure. So we decided, not unanimously, because I wasn't really excited about the trip at all where we were about to go, but we decided to go out with his wife to find more crack at a hotel that we knew a local dealer was at. However, the only thing we had of value that night was his wife. She was as desperate as we were. They both got out of my car, and they told me to wait. I'm sitting in my car in an old roadside motel on the bad side of town, scared to death and so ready just to go. And then after a few minutes, she came out, and she came out with the drugs that would keep us going for an entire night. I knew what she did in there. I know what her husband took her in there to do, and I was driving. There's so much more that I could tell you about nights like this, but I'll just fast forward to say there is something so much better than the life I was living then. And there is for you too. I said I didn't know what hope was. I sure could tell you what hopeless is. Even though I was surrounded by what I called friends then, I was more alone than I had ever been in my life. I was so alone. Hope seemed to be too far of a distant dream than a reality. I thought my life was about to end either by an overdose or by running away from another crazy drug dealer somewhere on a dark side street. It wasn't long before many of my army drug buddies were being caught and arrested. I'm scared. I'm scared at this point in my life. I wondered what going to jail would be like. I didn't like that thought at all. There was another person who could see what was happening in my life from a distance. He was a former drug user, and he served in the same unit that I did. He saw something in me, only in a way that God could ever even make happen. So in that wild, how in the world could this happen kind of way, I was placed on guard duty, alone with him in the middle of the desert for about a week. He took time to share hope with me that planted seeds in my heart, my mind, and my soul. I heard things I really never understood before, and they clicked. There was something about him, something I never really experienced before in my life. He explained to me there was a difference, and there was more to life than what I was feeling, and more to life than the lie that I was dealing. I couldn't escape the idea of hope and a place of purpose he shared with me. So we ended up back at the company a few days later, and what he said drove me to want to know more. I was ready to flip the script in my life, and I finally had something worth flipping to. So this was the night. It was a beautiful night, a full moon in the desert sky. If you've never seen the stars in the middle of a desert like this, you've never seen something that beautiful before. So we're all parked in our vehicles for the evening for a mission that was coming up tomorrow. I couldn't stop thinking about some of the things he told me last week. I was ready. I was ready to make a commitment. I walked to his vehicle and I gave him a note. I didn't know what to say. I just wrote it down. I gave him a note and told him I was ready. And in a matter of moments, he was too. We walked for quite some time to the top of a mountain just past our unit, and right there was a moonbeam of light that shined down, and he prayed with me. And I released my life of hopelessness. I gave up the hurt, the pains of my past, and standing there with him, I embraced faith and a hope in God. That night I gave my life to Christ and would never be the same again. He didn't just introduce me to hope. He introduced me to hope itself. He introduced me to Jesus Christ. Since then I've been blessed to marry a godly woman for 30 years and have 2 kids. At times they might be considered legally insane, but they're pretty awesome. In 2011 I was first diagnosed with melanoma cancer, had a couple of surgeries, and eventually was told I was all clear. But then in 2015, I began coughing up blood on the stage right before I was getting ready to go on and sing. What was first thought as pneumonia was found to be cancer in my lung. It came back. This tumor wasn't the first one they found. They started in my adrenal gland and then moved to my lung. And 2 months later, I had to close my business that I absolutely loved. And after that, it went right to my brain. I had to have emergency brain surgery. My body is permanently damaged from radiation, from treatments, a failed trial, and I'm still in a fight for my life. But the one thing I never knew, the one thing I thought I could never have all those years I just told you about, was hope. I don't have an understanding of hope like that back then, but I do now because of Christ, because hope now lives in me. What I've realized over these years, from the time of fitting in with the cooler kids, right? The loneliness, the party life, for me, what it all came down to? Acceptance. I would even say one of my biggest temptations to this day is acceptance. It's one of the largest life obstacles I've ever seen in my life, and in the lives of so many people I've had the honor of talking with and working it out. Are you facing life obstacles and realizing you don't have the freedom or clarity or quality of life you thought you would have? Is the obstacle in your life getting in the way of your family or relationships and you're sick of it happening? Are you facing a serious illness like I am? One that's rocking your world, and now you're really thinking about how this is going to affect your family, your loved ones, your legacy. Do you even have a legacy? Are you frustrated in your life or career and dealing with life obstacles? See, I had to get to a place where I knew I needed to flip the script on what was happening in the story of my life. I was the main character, but I wasn't happy with the script at all. That's when, at that time in my life, I did the flip. I'd like to share with you a few things that I've been able to put together that I feel are at the core of who every person is. There's 4 main areas that I can gain clarity and confidence in, can and will change your life forever. I help people overcome their biggest life obstacle, or their number one obstacle, so they can regain their freedom, reclaim a purpose to create a meaningful life. What's the first step you can take to overcoming life obstacles and living into a life of freedom? Have you been realizing or looking to replace thoughts and words of fear either spoken over you or through you? Have you personally been replacing those thoughts with positivity on the increase and confident thoughts of freedom, becoming more and more of who you are? Are you full of the confidence you need that results in accomplishing the balanced life of faith, legacy, identity, and purpose? And can you do all that in the next 30 days? I can help you. I can help you take the first step. The first step to hear the words of fear and destroy them with weapons of clarity through faith, legacy, identity, and purpose. This is what I call the flip.